Good morning and welcome back to another video, and today is another day of the Zero to Gold Cap Challenge. Now just stick around and enjoy the video. So for today we have been farming up a load of baseline materials because I want to get into the other form of mounts for mass production. Obviously we're setting this up incrementally, so then we can just start a full-scale production of a load of different types of mounts. We have now set up the one for the Vial of the Sands and production. I have done my dailies for the day for my 3 alchemists and their transmutations for the Pyrian bars, and now it is just a case of waiting for those mounts to sell and recrafting it for the profit. That being the case, we have our daily routine all set up for crafting Pyrian bars and running into the Vortex Pinnacle for volatile air. And now it is just a case of waiting for those to sell and then replenishing that stock in our guild bank, and then we can then build up and build up and build up. We could do like a massive rebuild of loads of mats. We could have like 1,000 of each material, but at the end of the day, that's not overly what we need. The next thing that I would like to get into is the Mechanized Chopper. Now this mount is by far one of the most easiest ones to craft, and I kind of thought a few days ago when I stated that if you don't have the Vial of the Sands, then craft the Mechanized Chopper, but I didn't really dig deep into that because I was like, let's set up the Vial of the Sands. So instead of sounding like an absolute dick, I've decided for the next couple of days we're going to be focusing on setting up the production for the Mechanized Chopper for those who don't have the recipe for the Vial of the Sands. So that being the case, we're going to go through the routes for this particular farm and tell you how long it usually takes to gather up all the materials for one Mechanized Chopper. So that being the case, let's get into the breakdown. The breakdown for the Mechanized Chopper is relatively simple. What you're going to need is 12,500 gold for the baseline materials, which you can retrieve in K2. Now, if I pull up my map right here and go over to K2, it is in Storm Peaks, and it's not called K2, it's called K3. And I'm an idiot. K2 is a mountain in the actual real world. K3 is the place in the Storm Peaks where you buy the engineering supplies, and the vendor is right next to the Flight Master. You will not miss it. Aside from that, the next few things on our list for the actual breakdown is we're going to need 36 titanium bars. This can be got through 72 titanium ore, or we can use a little trick which I will talk about later on. In the next few things are the Eternal Fire, the Eternal Earth and Eternal Shadow, and you need 12 of them respectively for each. And the other thing is cobalt bars. You need 40 of those, and it is a 1-to-1 ratio, so you will need 40 cobalt ore. Now, the last thing of note is the Arctic Fur. Now, if you want to get hold of Arctic Fur, as you only need 2, you're not going to really need a full lengthy session to get a hold of these. That being the case, it is more beneficial the majority of the time to just buy it off the auction house and use that, as it's really not going to overly affect the gold for this mount and production for the future long. So you could probably just buy like a stack of 200 and just leave it there. If you wanted to, however, farm up Arctic Fur, I would recommend going over to the Nexus in the Borean Tundra and just going into the Oculus and gathering up the first pack of trash mobs and skinning those. They have a 10 max lockout. Primarily, this is the one that's actually on the Worth It add-on as well, and it nets you around about 3,899 gold. So as well as you're getting your Arctic Fur, you're also going to get a load of Borean leather. So for that lockout, you're pretty much going to be golden. Now, aside from that, we're going to need 40 cobalt ore. I have just finished the farm for the cobalt ore, and it is in the Borean Tundra once again. Now, this will take you about 20 minutes to get hold of 40 cobalt ore, and the map is pretty much right here in the green. So you just follow it all the way around the actual outside of the zone, and you will be able to gain that 40 cobalt ore within about 20 minutes, give or take 5 minutes either side, depending on the drop rates of those deposits. Now, the main thing of note is by gathering up Saronite and Titanium ore. So where do you think I'm going to be going? And that is obviously Wintergrasp. Now, the thing of note for Wintergrasp, I did this one a little bit earlier this morning, and the route is on the map right now. It's basically following it in like this little, well, a t-shirt shaped pattern, and I didn't really realise that before. But aside from that, it's basically doing that for the entire hour, and it usually takes about an hour to gather up all the materials for the mechanized chopper. Now, you're probably going to look at the titanium ore specifically, but there is some little trick that we can do, which we'll get into momentarily. The thing of note is that we're going to need about 72 titanium ore, and that is to create our 36 titanium bars. Now, there is a little way in which we can get around the titanium ore thing, and that is by using our Saronite with our alchemists. So without further ado, I would recommend that we go over to our alchemist. So by going over to our alchemist over here, we're basically going to be going into our alchemy, and what we're going to be looking up is the titanium ore, so Titan. So Titan and titanium. What you need is 8 Saronite bars, and you're going to be getting a lot of Saronite while doing this particular farm. The thing of note is 8 Saronite bars equals 1 titanium bar. Now, for obvious reasons, the gold per hour for these may not correlate between each other, so you may be able to pull a profit by switching them over. But aside from that, you can then smelt your titanium ore and your titanium bars and then send them over to your character, who is your alchemist. Now, this isn't relatively hard to get a hold of, this transmute, so it will be pretty much very easy to get a hold of. But at this moment in time, we have currently the chopper. We've just made a new tab in our guild bank called chopper, so we've got vial of sands, mats, and chopper. So with the chopper, we now have 59 titanium ore. So 59 titanium ore, and we've got 254 Saronite ore. And once we've smelted all of this, we'll have enough for the mechanized chopper. So that being the case, we've got our cobalt ore, which is not in here just yet because that's still on our gathering person, so Corthana. And what we need now is 12 of the Eternals. Now, the 12 of the Eternals is relatively easy to get a hold of, and for that, we're going to have to jump our way over to Dalaran. So we now have just come into the Northrend Dalaran, as you cannot do this in the Legion one. So obviously I've just jumped on my mage and pressed my portal to Northrend just to save a little bit of time. So we'll just mount up and we'll head over there. Now, there is a way in which we can circumvent certain things for our mount, and if by farming up the titanium ore, you're still going to get a nice sizable amount of Eternals. Now, the nice sizable amount of Eternals is quite nice, and the next thing of the Eternals is by going over to this guy over here, and that is the Frozen Orb Trader. Now, this person is over here, located in the Magus Commerce Exchange, basically just over here. And I can't read, but all you have to do is, by using Frozen Orbs, you are able to buy some of these. So you can look up how much things are. So Eternal Earth, we know that that is going to be, that is about 7 gold for those. So it's not really worth this little flip. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to make sure that we buy our Eternals through this, and we fly over to this vendor over here, which is right next to the auction house in Dalaran. And for 60 gold, you are able to buy a load of Frozen Orbs. So what I want to do is buy 6 of those, just for convenience sake, and it was 60 gold, and then times that by 6. And 6 times by 60 is around about 360 gold. So 360 gold as opposed to the 92 gold. We're now saving the auction house fee for buying these off of the auction house for 92 gold, so we're saving 32 gold by not buying these off. So I use this as a method in order to pad out our Eternals, not as a way of production. So when we're actually farming in Wintergrasp, so we'll jump over to Wintergrasp, when we're actually farming in Wintergrasp, we are then gathering up a load of Eternals while doing that because they drop from the nodes. So any of the others that are left over, what I plan on doing with this, that being the case, the things that we would need to do is then pad out what we actually still need. So for instance, I know Eternal Fire, we're going to need Frozen Orbs. So 6 of those, and we're going to spend 6 Frozen Orbs for 60 gold apiece for 6 Eternal Fires, which actually cost you 92 gold. So now we can then pad this out and then use that to reduce the cost of our farm. And because of this, we don't actually have to spend that much time farming, and we're only sacrificing just a little bit of gold just to pad out the chopper. So overall, how long does it take me to get hold of all the materials for the Mechanist chopper? And that is roughly around about an hour and 20 minutes. Give or take around about 15 to 20 minutes either side, depending on how fast you are, what class you are, depending, because druids have an advantage when farming in Wintergrasp, and also the methods in which you do it. If you follow my method of then farming and then padding out with, once you've got all of your other materials such as your titanium, saronite and cobalt ore, they are your main ones you need to focus on. All of the others can either be bought from the Frozen Orb vendor, or the auction house from the Arctic Fur can be bought off the auction house for a cheaper price. So that being the case, it takes me roughly around about an hour and 20 minutes to gather up all of the materials. Now I'm probably going to get a couple of comments saying, well, why don't you just sell the mats from the Wintergrasp farm? So when it comes to farming up the Wintergrasp farm, you have a load of different mats, where instead of trying to sell loads of different mats all at once, why not compress that into one thing? So when that sells, that is that entire farm for that hour. The majority of the time you also make a couple of extra 1,000 gold on top of selling the Mechanist chopper, as opposed to just selling the raw mats from that entire farming session. So you're probably going to work out it better in the long run as opposed to the short term. So that is pretty much how I go about crafting the Mechanist chopper. Now it is just a case of doing the initial setup and build up for the 3, because we're going to do things in 3s, the 3 Mechanist choppers. So what I'm going to need is 108 titanium bars. I also need 36 Eternal Fires, 36 Eternal Earth, 36 Eternal Shadow, I'm reading it off my notepad, and 120 Cobalt bars. So in about an hour I will probably have the Cobalt bars and the Arctic Fur, which I'm probably just going to buy 6 Arctic Furs off of the auction house. So the Mechanist chopper is one of the most easiest ones to get into if you want to get into the mount market. They are a low seller though, so be prepared that you will have to wait. This is why you build up a production line of loads of different mounts, and you have a daily routine to coincide with that. So that being the case, my daily routine at this moment in time for the Vial of the Sands and all round at this moment is by logging onto my 3 alchemists, doing my craft, my daily cooldown for my Pyrian bars to make my true gold. The other things of note is by doing the volatile air once a week. So that is 1 instance lockout per week to make sure that we have enough volatile air on the auction house. You can double it up if you would like by blasting it out in a day and having a few hundred volatile airs just in case. But really, and what we're going to be doing for the Mechanist chopper is by just keeping up with the supply. So about an hour and 20 minutes to gather up all the materials for a Mechanist chopper, and the Mechanist chopper sells from, on this realm, particularly for me, it usually sells for in about a week to 2 weeks. So the next course of action is to make sure that I've got another 2 in production. So I've got them on the bank and ready to be crafted, because obviously we don't have enough gold to just pre-do all of the mounts at this moment in time, so we're still building up our gold and building up our gold. So the next course of action is by tomorrow I should have all of the materials for the other 2 mechanized choppers, and we will be crafting it and making sure that everyone's all set up, and we will go through the daily crafts for the days and our weekly shopping list in which what we're going to be doing. This will make it a lot easier for all of us to understand, and I will be going through that later today. So aside from that, we will be going into the gold for the day, which is, while we're sat at the auction house, it is 8,539 gold. Things of note are a stack of 200 crimson ink for 2,864 gold, 133 crimson ink for 1,905 gold, a Crush and Thrusher cannon controller we sold for 3,322 gold, and the rest of it's infinite dust, hypnotic dust, and ultramarine ink. So what we need now is 12,500 gold. We've only got 12,000. So what we're going to do is try and sell all of this stuff. I've now just set up a Vial of the Sands and a mounts crafted operation for my TSM. And once it is all done, once we've set up our production line, I'll be happy to export the code and just give it to you guys. So it's just a lot easier for everyone. So aside from all of that, we are still raising money for the RSPCA fundraiser. We have released a video for the RSPCA fundraiser, so if you haven't seen it already, go check it out. Or if you wish to donate, it is down in the description down below. And we're aiming for around about £300. Other than that, guys, that is pretty much all I have to say for the day. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and I shall see you in the next video, which will be tomorrow. Have an awesome day, guys, and I shall see you soon.